This is 521 Patty Canyon. My name is Mark Fricky, and one feature is through Birch Creek Builders. These are timber framed larch and Douglas fir reclaimed beams. The larch came from standing dead from the 1910 fire, and a lot of the shorter pieces were left over from other reclaim jobs. The siding is hardy board with a reflective house wrap that reflects 97% of whatever it hits it, and it has helped a lot in the this summer with keeping our house cool. I've added rainwater collection barrels. I've got approximately 200 gallons of capacity and have emptied them multiple times this year already.
And what do you do with the rainwater?
Put it on the trees and the landscaping. The soffit is reclaimed shiplap, and all the windows and doors have been replaced for higher efficiency, and wherever insulation could be added, it was. You can see the solar panels up on the roof from there, and there's 9 solar panels, and it offsets our electric bill. And the last 2 months we've had no electric bill, and we've been building a credit to offset the cloudier months. It cost roughly $14,000 to put it in. There's a $2,000 federal tax credit, one-time use, and then there's also a $500 state tax credit that you can use yearly. So we went with a smaller system that is fairly accurate and will offset our electric bill, but in the hopes that we will add to it probably in the next few years. Right now, when you run the numbers on whether it's going to pay itself off and when that is, you're between 25 and 30 years. And that's with today's rate. Well, that's with last year's rates. And already we've seen an increase in electric prices. So as electric prices grow up, that payoff period will go down. The concept is called net metering, and it's in most of the states now. There are some states that don't have it. But basically they run a solar year from April to April, and you start at 0 in April, and then you build a credit throughout the year in the sunny months to cover you in the cloudier months. And they won't send you a check or anything, but they'll store the energy for you so that you can use it later. So this winter, basically what happened is on the sunny days, you know, it would run everything inside, the refrigerator and freezer and computer if it was on, and maybe, you know, build us just a little bit of a credit, but nothing extremely noticeable. Our electric bill this winter was about the same. But this year, since we've started in this April, when the sunnier months are up, this year will be the first year that we've had it up for a full solar year from April to April. So I'll be able to have a better feel for how it's offsetting our electric bill next April. And then we've got a 70-gallon Japanese soaking tub, and I've got a partial gray water system that we put in, and so I can either have it come out this faucet or turn on. It's all controlled on a valve, or it just can go down the regular drain for winter. The skirt is cedar siding with a redwood ledger. And then this is the inverter that switches the electric produced by the panels to convert it so that it ties in with the AC. So it changes it from a DC current to an AC current so that it fits with our AC currents that are designed into the houses. If you get close up there, you can probably get to see the meter turning backwards. It's producing about 1,300 watts at this point. So it's going backwards at a pretty good clip, and today we've produced 5.4 kilowatts. And over the lifetime of the system, well, that's just today. It's been online for 7 hours today. The reason we kind of did so much to our home is because we lived here initially for 4 years and then decided that we didn't want to move and like the location. And so we ended up going the whole 9 yards. This is kind of a side project. All of this stuff was left over from the remodel. The cabinets came from the house, and this is the north slope, some leftover north slope flooring that I made into a counter, and then the slate was left over from the bathrooms, and I got the sink from Home Resource. That's where the gray water system is. So there's a butterfly valve to close it and then another valve to close it off in the winter. We primarily dump the rain barrel water and the gray water onto the trees that we have.
And I guess the only consideration with gray water is to make sure there's no hazardous chemicals of any kind.
Yeah, it's bath water.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't have anything else hooked up to the gray water system. We redid the mechanical room, so we put an on-demand hot water heater in that is also an on-demand boiler. So the basement has radiant floor heat in it, and that is the on-demand boiler produces the heat for that. And then for our forced air, we switched to a heat exchanger, which has a hot water coil in it. And when that heats up, the fan kicks on and blows past it. And so the on-demand boiler also heats the water for that.
And so there's some R value benefit.
This floor came from a house over kind of off Edith Street. It had a second floor fire in it, and the folks pulling it down recognized that it was fir, so they piled it in the yard, and a friend of mine saw it, and we bought it and spent a long time pulling nails and planing it down to put in. And then kitchen, had slate flooring with electric radiant heat in it, and then soapstone countertops and a copper sink, and all the appliances are Energy Star rated. This is the north slope flooring, and Peter Stark and Matthew Arno have been producing this for the last few years, and this is the first time I'd put this in, but it went in incredibly easily, and for for a larch, it has held up extremely well as far as traffic and everything. So, and then this is the tub where the gray water comes from. So it's a Japanese soaking tub where the partial gray water system is. And then there's electric radiant floor heat in here too. And honed granite countertops and copper sinks. Copper is one of the most easily recycled metals because it has a low melting point. So the timber frame work was done by Birch Creek Builders. The all the stick framing and other remodel elements were done by Paul Donaldson, Joe Jensen, and Raven Rayshap. And all the tile work was done by Adam Sherba. So those are the primary people who worked on the house. And the architect was Angie Lipsky from MMW. The mechanical room was done by Advanced Heating and Cooling. My parents came in a lot too and helped.
The radiant, electric radiant under there, when I've looked at it, it's kind of pricey for
It is kind of pricey.
the space it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I spent $1,000 on just the materials. But I figured we wanted to live here for a long time, so
Sure.
either put it in now or
Yeah.
don't have it. So
Right, that's,
yeah, I guess I don't have like any sort of specific reason why I did it. I thought the idea of the larch flooring was great. I like the look of big wide planked flooring, and that opportunity arose. And as far as the whole remodel itself, we did it because we liked the location, and we didn't want to move in town or out of town any farther. So you know, we kind of just went all the way with it, and because we were going to stay here a while, that's why we put the solar system on. So yeah, I guess the motivation behind it is primarily because we wanted to raise a family here in this house. So I didn't go into this thinking I'm going to make this a greenhouse or a sustainable house, or I just kind of started doing things that I felt were appropriate to do, and it came out that way.
So the concept behind this house is to use as many locally produced materials, unmanufactured. So it's the buy local, buy fresh approach to building. So the main ingredient in the structure of this house is the dirt that was dug out of the hole, and which we reuse in the earth bag foundation that is all of these walls that you see with the stucco on them. They are grain bags filled with the earth we dug out. We took it over to a screening operation. So we screen it down to create the equivalent of a road mix, which is 30% clay, the rest sand and gravel, and that is a very compactable mixture. And we've got a couple over here in the process of building an earth bag wall. So what they do is lay these bags out with rows of barbed wire in between, and then tamp them hard, and with a inner weave of wire on the vertical as well to act as a vertical rebar. And then that gets plastered with an earthen-based plaster, which is also the soil, then screened down one more level with straw added for fiber, and that becomes this finishing plaster out here. So this first level of building is all basically taken from site, other than the importing of the polypropylene bags. And the design concept of this house is what's called annualized geosolar. So the heat is stored through the summer months. It's a passive solar, goes into the through the bag walls and into the floor, and then there's a protected thermal mass behind the house. And we also have solar inputs in the form of what look like cold frames here. And so at present we don't have glass here. It's covered with this metal for protection, but that will be glassed in with a rubble heat sink. And so that draws hot air through pipes under the floor, around the back of the house, and heats that thermal mass. And then the thermal mass retains the heat through the winter. And so passively, all the heat comes through your floor, through your walls. And so it's a way to take all the available heat that you get in the summer, store it, and then give it back to the house in the winter. And there's an added advantage in that in the summer, you've taken the heat out, and so now you're reheating that earth, and the earth is giving back the cool temperature into the house. So in the summertime, you maintain a much lower temperature. So the house tends to stabilize at a year-round temperature, and it's dependent on your total thermal mass and your amount of heat loss. And we're shooting for about 70 degrees as a year-round temperature, and that is with no heat source. And we incorporate a backup heat system in case we don't hit our target. And there will be times when we have sub-zero temperatures and wind that you can go below that stable temperature. And there's a couple of added features to this house that aren't recommended in a annualized geosolar, in the fact that we've got a lot of windows on this south face, because we're having an interior greenhouse, and the greenhouse is part of our gray water filtration system. So all of the water used in the house comes, the gray water supply comes off the roof, goes into that cistern, gets utilized for wash water, for plants, showers. Then the water gets taken to an exterior greenhouse with a lot of sedges and high filtration plants, and then comes back into, by gravity feed, comes back into the lower greenhouse, where we'll have trees and other plants as an additional food source. So we'll have a year-round greenhouse running in the interior of the house. So all our walls above grade then are made of straw, and the purpose of the straw is twofold. It's super insulated, and it's also using another local product with very low embodied energy in it. And our plaster on the straw is the same as the plaster on the earth bag, so it's the same system, which is a clay, sand, straw mix. And the central tower that you see will be glassed in, and that is the engine behind the heat system. That is what's called a solar chimney. So that will be totally sealed off from the house air, and that will heat up, and when it heats up to a certain point, we have an automatic vent that opens there and opens in our preheat tubes, our sun boxes out here, and that draws that air through the earth and up through the solar chimney. So that's how we put additional heat into the earth around the house to try and get our year-round temperature above the ground temperature of 58 degrees.
That'll operate just by convection.
Just by convection. That's the. And then we're doing a few other experiments. There's a little section where you see that scupper coming out there. That's the runoff from our roof, and there's a little building under that, which is separated from the rest of the house, and that has its own insulation, its own thermal mass. And during the winter, we will vent in cold air and then store that cool air and see what kind of year-round temperature we can maintain in there, so to try and get free cooling. So the opposite concept. And to save on the lumber in the house, most of the timbers are all salvage logs. So the main support timbers are salvage logs. So they're also a local product, and they're not milled, so you reduce the manufacturing cost. And the structure of the roof and most of the remaining timbers are all recycled locally here too. The ones, a lot of them came from a barn down the Bitterroot Valley. So they're not only are very strong, but they're have an incredible patina that you get from old lumber. So for all of the window seats, anything decorative, it creates a beautiful impact. So that's our little solar tower up there, separated from the house because it'll have a generator that will come on automatically. And so the batteries and the inverter and the generator will be in the little tower up there. And the panels are on a tracker, so that tracks the sun as it moves across the sky, which improves the efficiency of it. So one of the challenges of building into a hillside is the drainage patterns. So when we built into that back slope, there's a 10-foot trench that goes all the way around the back of the house. And in that trench, we have a French drain. So all of the membrane that protects the soil, keeps our soil dry, drops down into that ditch and drains all the water so that we can keep our thermal mass dry. So all the way the perimeter around the house, 12 feet out and then 8 feet down, basically has 4 inches of styrofoam insulation covered with EPDM membrane, which is a heavy rubber membrane, and then carpet over that, which serves as a protective barrier for the backfilling stage. And then over that we just grow grass. So it's pretty much, once it's in place, you never touch it. It's just there to protect your thermal mass and keep it dry. Because if you get water into the thermal mass, then it'll carry away all your heat and rob your engine of its heating ability. So and to fully test this house, it takes 2 years. After we get everything sealed off, we open up these solar inputs, the whole house is sealed, and we start running the heat in. It takes about 2 years to drive all the moisture out of your soil, so you can actually measure your heat back, and you'll stabilize within 10 degrees at a year-round temperature in the house, and it should stay fairly close to that temperature summer and winter. So we can go in here, and so these little arches are built totally unsupported by using a form, and then once they're covered with the earth bags, because you've got a compressed arch, they won't collapse. Once you get that top bag over, you have to have a form to build them up, but once you get your 2 bags over the top, we've got a picture somewhere of somebody right after we did it standing on top of the arch with only 1 bag.
Do you have a timeline when you expect it to be finished?
Well, a lot of it depends on funding. We're pretty much self-funded, and I've spent all my money, so now it's looking for funding to finish it. This is a fairly complex design, but the reason for the complexity was that it was just I was inspired to build this particular shape, and as long as you're building a demonstration model, I figured beauty never hurts, and having an inspiring shape, something unusual, it will help with the impact of trying to pass on these sort of concepts, and it'll draw more people in. So I figure it's kind of a form of advertising as well, to show you what you can do with just dirt, dirt and straw, and the complexity. And when the backup system will be a high efficiency wood burner with a masonry, and so these steps that are going up to nowhere will actually continue in the masonry fireplace. So we'll build the steps right into the fireplace.
Okay.
This right here is the planter. This is the interior planter. And because of the height of the roof, we'll be able to grow some fairly sizable trees in here. And because of a stabilized year-round temperature, we should be able to grow even things like banana trees and fig trees. It's partially aesthetic, partially for indoor air quality, and then it's part of our gray water system. So there's, and then a little addition was this little pond, which will be a little tilapia fish pond, and that'll be the final stage of our filtration in the gray water system. So we're hoping to do a little water feature on that wall, dropping down into the, so as far as the balance of elements, we'll have fire here and water here.
Wow.
This wouldn't be enough to do the amount of filtration for the gray water. And the outside one will use sedges and real high filtration type plants as well as other edible plants, and then we'll bring the water in here already mostly filtered. And we'll have the ability to circulate the water if we have an excess, which I don't think we will, and then run it back through the whole system again and keep it moving so we don't have a lot of standing water. So basically the house will be diverting water both sides around it, and that's where we'll put our garden spots on either side. So we'll try and naturally get the water to work for us instead of against us. And this is a south slope that picks up a lot of heat. We rarely keep frost in the ground on this slope anyway, so that'll help in the whole heat loss in the winter. And this the heat system will also pick up heat even in the winter. On a good, clear, sunny day, we'll still be putting heat into the system, because as long as it's warm enough to draw through the solar chimney, we'll be drawing hot air even in the middle of the winter, because the solar boxes and the chimney will probably heat up to well above 100 degrees even in a winter day, and so we'll be driving that heat through the dirt and keeping that heat flowing as long as the sun's shining. The helix design was something that I just wanted to build, but it works in quite well with the sloped site, in the fact that it winds up and around, and we have 3 different levels that are all walkout. Even the loft on the 3rd level walk out the back of the house. So there's there. That's the loft. So even on the 3rd level, we're
All right.
walking out a window, but it's a little bit short for a door, but we'll just stick a big window in there. Yeah. So the water starts here, runs all the way down around, follows that little path, and then drops into the cistern. And in the finished phase, the grass will go right from here right up on, so it'll be a seamless transition from the surrounding to the roof. So basically you can just walk from here right up onto the roof and walk around.
Yeah.
The challenge is going to be holding the grass the first year, hoping not to get a huge thunderstorm right off the bat before we're seeded, or we'll be reseeding.
It's sort of like a snail shell
Yeah.
design.
I've already making changes because of dealing with round and the shape. The loft, which is going to be the master bedroom, ended up being a little smaller than I'd anticipated, so instead of a balcony, we're actually going to build that out just to put a little more room into the master bedroom, and plus it'll give a little more relief to that big broad face and sort of match the character of the tower, because the pyramid shape of the tower is going to extend down into that glass front, so it'll have a prismatic view on the front, and so then we'll have this little bay that comes out will kind of mirror the characteristic of the solar tower, and will help that big broad south face visually.
The first element I'd like you to show you about this house is the passive solar system that we have. And passive solar is simply orienting a lot of your glazing towards due south. And then for summer heat gain, which of course you want to avoid, we put in deep overhangs, which keep the high winter sun from touching the glazing. I mean, the high summer sun from touching the glazing. In the winter, the sun angle is lower. So the sun comes directly through the glass and heats the rooms. And then we have, this fir is recycled from an old factory in Oregon. It was a 100-year-old factory that they were taking down, and a local firm this wood to us, and we had it milled down. Actually, it was true 3x12s. We had it milled down for the flooring. Regarding the passive solar system, the other ingredient that we have are these concrete counters in the kitchen, and we have concrete floors in the living room, and these act like thermal heat sinks to retain the heat of the sun. So again, this is concrete floor. It also has a radiant heat system in it. And this concrete floor has been stained after it was laid, and we have hand-tooled joints in it, which kind of gives it a nice handmade effect, shall we say. And again, we have a lot of glazing in this room. And not only the passive solar occurs because of the glazing, but it also acts as daylighting, which means that we don't need to turn on light fixtures as often because the house is generally pretty well lit just via the sunlight. And then if you look at the pine that we have in the house, which you can see in the tongue and groove here, and we actually have some posts out on the deck that were originally trees here. We had to take down a couple of trees when the house was being built, and we wanted to reincorporate them back into the structure. So all of the pine that you see was actually growing on the site prior to the house being built. In terms of landscaping, we were trying to keep it very native. So we've got native grasses around the house site, and then we just have an area of outdoor rooms that we've created with concrete, poured concrete and concrete pavers. And then we have drought-tolerant plants in some planters, and the rest is just native grasses. So we don't really have a lawn here per se. We never mow it. We don't own a lawnmower. And we are working on the weeds. Pretty soon I think we should have a handle on them so that we don't really need to worry about them. But here you can see the deep overhangs of the house that help keep the sun off the glazing in the summer. These are weather shield windows, which have a good R value. And we also have a good thermal envelope in that this is SIPS panel walls, which are structurally insulated panels. And it's essentially a wafer, and the outer boards of the wafer are oriented strand board, and then the inside of the wafer is rigid insulation. And it just creates a real tight, highly insulated wall. And this again is pine from the trees that we took down, the 2 trees. Because of the highly insulated structure, we have an ERV system, energy recovery system, which essentially brings fresh air into the house so that the house doesn't get too closed up. In the winter, for instance, we don't get condensation on the glass, which we would if we didn't have the fresh air coming in. And also it takes care of pet odors.
Yeah, I saw the sustainable cat.
Yeah, she's pretty sustainable. I think she could go without eating for several days and be pretty sustainable. This is just a little loft study area that we made. And it's cozy.
Yeah.
And the roof is also out of the SIPS panels. And then again, the stair is all the blue pine. The blue pine actually was a sick tree,
Right.
and I love the color that it creates. And this is our newly installed green roof. It was installed 2 days ago, and it's pre-vegetated with 11 varieties of sedum. And I love it. It's fireproof. It cools the house in the summer, keeps the house a little warmer in the winter. It cleans the air. It filters rainwater and cleans that. And it will grow another 2 or 3 inches. The different varieties, of course, grow at to different heights. But it just came in these large rolls like a carpet, and they unrolled first a drainage layer, and then the next layer was a water retention layer, and then on top of that was the layer of sedum with the little rocks. And then the other element is that we put our vegetable garden up here because it keeps it out of weeds and away from wildlife, and we don't have to have giant fences, and it's just a great place to hang out, basically, up on the roof. You have to come over and talk to Clayton, because Clayton is the roof guy.
Well, the green roof is a relatively new tool in the U.S. It's been established in Germany for 30 to 40 years. It's really only about 10 years have green roofs been introduced and adopted in the U.S. Really the last 2 or 3 years has it really become a significant construction tool. What we now have is a system here, which is one particular method of doing green roofing, where the vegetation comes on as a mat, similar to sod. So it's pre-vegetated in the field, harvested as rolls, and installed by just unrolling the rolls out onto the roof. That's different than other systems, which we call grown on, where all the loose soil type material is spread out on the roof and individual plants are planted about 1 foot apart. It takes those roofs about 3 to 4 years to grow in a continuous sheet of vegetation. It takes our system about 6 months to recover from all the handling and installation stress and be a fully vibrant, fully established green roof technology. How long will this last? This green roof should last 40 to 50 years. It extends the lifetime of the membrane underneath the roof. It saves energy use for the building owner. It reduces stormwater runoff. It reduces energy, acoustic noise coming through the building. It purifies water that runs off. It purifies air from pollen particulates or other kinds of particulates. It purifies those out of the air. Releases oxygen, of course. Takes up CO2, which we all know is important for global warming. It provides habitat. We've already seen some butterflies up here pollinating, and just provides a really scenic and attractive way to construct a building that gives you all these environmental and economical benefits. I've heard that there's a sod type roof in Missoula, but I've not seen it. This was just explained to me in the last day or two. This is the first sedum type green roof, which is, I guess, the more technically common green roof system. And so we have, I guess, being the luxury of being the first extensive green roof system. Extensive being a term that's developed by the German green roof industry. That means these lightweight, low profile green roofs based on succulent plants, these drought tolerant, long-lived durable species that are ideal for this thin, lightweight growing profile.
Regarding why we went green with a lot of the elements of this house is, I guess I just feel like it's a good thing to do. I mean, the construction process by nature is a relatively non-green thing. You come in with large trucks and you make big holes in the earth and you create habitat for people, which is very different from habitat for creatures. So what I was trying to do was just make this, although it's habitat for people, as natural as possible. I believe in using natural products on my skin and eating as naturally as possible, and I just think that it's important for our world to try to minimize the damage that we as humans generally cause by creating our own little structures in our habitats. So I've believed in green for a long time, and finally really getting to enjoy practicing green architecture in this valley, and it's fun. And I guess the starting point for me was building my own home because I could experiment with the different products and see what worked well and what didn't work as well. And it's been a real learning process, and it's an ongoing process, and it's fun to go to different sustainable tours. My husband and I were just down visiting my parents in Florida, and they had a sustainability tour there. It was really interesting because it's very different there because they don't need heating at all. So their whole issue is daylighting, but you know, they don't want passive solar. Their whole issue is cooling and breezes and natural ventilation, and so it's very different from ours. And yet there are similar ingredients as well. But it was real intriguing. And it's taking off right now, the whole green movement across the country, so we're all learning so much so quickly, and the systems are getting so better and better. And someday, I mean, our house has been very step by step. We've done a lot of it ourselves. Someday I'd like to get some active solar panels here, some photovoltaic panels, and hopefully that'll happen in the near future. But the panels keep getting better so quickly, it's kind of like, well, when do you say, okay, now's the time? And also, they cost a lot of money, and it would be nice to have more government incentives for that sort of thing, which I think is probably, hopefully, in the works for the future, because there's a lot of other countries on this earth that have really good government incentives for thermal and wind energy, and our country is lagging way behind, and we're using a lot more of the resources, and we are not taking care, we're not being good stewards of our earth, and I think it's important for us to try to somehow start to become better stewards for our world.